Tick tock, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood. And with me now, we have the Masters of Arabic. The Masters of Arabic, Jai and Daughter of Christ. Let me make sure I can hear you guys. How you guys doing? Hey, how did it mute him again? That's weird. It only happens with Jai and Daughter of Christ. 1 second. What if I click on you?
Oh, there we go.
What?
Hello.
Yeah, but I had to
Hey.
click. Yeah, but I had to click on. I had to click on you. I had to click on you. I had to click on you and off the presentation. Hang on, let me see what happens here.
Okay.
Oh, good. All right, good. We're good. I thought it was going to be a problem where if I had your presentation up, then I wasn't going to be able to hear your audio. But looks like we're good.
All right, man.
We're all gold, right?
Yeah.
We're all gold. All right.
All good. Yeah.
All right.
That was the first time we've been introduced like that, so thank you very much.
You very much.
We're very happy to be with you today.
All right, now you've been on before, but there may be new people. And hey, guys, this should be a more Europe-friendly time for all of the Europeans who constantly complain that we go live too late, and who constantly whine and send me messages moaning and wailing about how we go live too late, as if you can't just watch it the next day with no problem at any time you want. Any time of the day. You say, no, we're Europeans. The entire world has to revolve around us. And so things have to go live when we prefer. So anyway, I'm a big softy. So here we are, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And so perfect time for Europeans. All right. So you guys have been on before, but why don't you give everyone a little background on you, and then our last discussion was basically on kind of the history of the Quran and what how Muslims ended up with the different qira'at and so on. We'll probably do a quick synopsis of that. Anyone who wants to go through that can go through the previous live stream, but you could give an overview, and then we'll get into this presentation, which is how the most popular version of the Quran today is actually unreliable according to Islamic scholars' own standards. So this should be fun. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone?
Exactly. Yeah, so thanks so much for having us on. We are a little congested right now, just fighting off the end of the cold.
You ain't the only one. Look at these cough drops right here. No one has no one has more cough drops than me right beside him.
Yeah, you got us beat with those. Yes, so we sound a little nasally, but yes, I'm Jai, and this is DOC, and we have a ministry where we focus on reaching out to Muslims. Also, we have a heart to reach out to rabbinic Jews as well, but we really focus on reaching out to Muslims. Daughter of Christ, she'll introduce herself, but she's a former Muslim, and we both speak Arabic. And we just have a heart and passion to reach out to the Muslim people. The last stream that we did with David.
One second. Was I correct when I talked to you previously that you've also studied Hebrew?
Oh yes, yeah, Hebrew. Yeah, so yeah, Hebrew. A little bit of background. Really just like love languages, and so yeah, Hebrew, Arabic, and we try to utilize that in our ministry as well when we reach out to different groups, going to like original languages and stuff, and helping also provide translations for things that Muslims may have mistranslated or just don't translate. So yeah, we last stream we covered 7 different variant Quranic readings, busted that whole myth of there being one Quran, and we showed contradictions, we showed things that change Islamic law, jurisprudence. Like Muslims will often say, the difference is, well, first they have to get past that level of there's no differences at all. Once they get past that, they say, okay, there are differences, but they just complement each other. And we showed how you even have Muslim scholars who say, actually, no, there's contradictions between the readings. Actually, there's errors, there's mistakes. And so that stream, we focused on that. We gave about 7 different examples. But yeah, so here is Daughter of Christ with
Hello, I'm Daughter of Christ, and I am from the Middle East. I'm Arabic speaking. I'm a native. I came to the Lord Jesus Christ from Islam about 7 years ago. I had my schooling split between the West and the Middle East, so I am fluent in Arabic and English. I worked with Sister Hatun on Hadith Ministries, translating Arabic sources for a few years. And I have Sister Hatun's testimony that those translations were never even once opposed by Muslims or challenged by Muslims ever. When we translate, I do it very literally, so that we do our best to be faithful to translations. So they cannot be challenged. Basically,
there's no wiggle room
we
for
we,
the
we
Muslims.
we pray over those translations. We go over them lots of times. And when myself and Jai joined forces, I saw that there was a need for translation for the qira'at differences, the differences between Arabic Qur'ans that affect the meaning.
Yes, and so that's really how it started for us as well. We joined forces, and through God's grace, we ended up actually getting married. And so we are married, and we are doing ministry together. So yeah, that's a little bit about us and what we discussed last time.
Hey, and so all you young guys out there who are wondering how you're going to get along in this world and get married and get a family, sounds like learn a bunch of languages and get involved in apologetics and polemics and stuff, and then you'll find the person for you. That about right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I mean, is that how you did it, David? Or?
I actually tell people that because when I share my testimony, I was in an airport arguing with Nabil. We were going on a trip. I was in the airport arguing with Nabil about the resurrection, and this other student comes up to us, starts arguing with us both, saying we're both right, saying we're both right. Now, and so we went crazy. We're like, wait a minute. I'm saying Jesus rose from the dead. He's saying Jesus didn't rise from the dead. One of us is right, the other's wrong. There's no situation here where we're both right about this, unless you're Aristotle's nemesis and you don't believe in the law of contradiction. Anyway, well, what she was pointing out is, if it's true for you, it's a true for you kind of thing. If you believe that, then it's true for you kind of nonsense. But she was an agnostic, but like a friendly agnostic, just believe whatever you want and so on. Anyway. Yep, did tons of apologetics. 2 weeks later, she was a Christian, and 2 months later, we were engaged. So yeah, that was my wife. So I tell people that. I tell people that at the end. And I go, guys, so you see, apologetics can get you the girl of your dreams.
Yeah, definitely seek God first, and you'll be amazed.
And all those things will be
very surprised
added to you.
What God brings. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So don't know if you want to say anything here, but you guys are in the UK. Daughter of Christ is an ex-Muslim. Does that have something to do with you guys not showing your faces in streams and so on? Just in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah.
Sadly, the religion of pieces has some. You've been to the UK. You've seen how much of a stronghold it is under Islam.
Yeah, and how quickly you get recognized, and how word spreads. So basically, for that reason, and for also other reasons, we while we're here in the UK, but God may have other plans for us in the future. So we may not always be like this, but for now we're just kind of.
We'll do a big reveal one day.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah, because I was over there. It was way worse than I thought. I didn't know how bad it is over there for ex-Muslims. Yeah. It seems especially this is just from the several people that I talked to. So there are way more people who could give input. But based on the several people I talked to, it seems especially people from the Pakistani community who are ex-Muslims are just violently attacked. And they have to flee, and the police don't want to help them because they don't want to get on the wrong side of the Pakistani Muslim community. And it really sounded like a parallel to the grooming gang situation, where the police know what's going on. They don't want to intervene because that would be to acknowledge that there's a problem, and it would be to take a side on the problem. And they just don't want to do that. But that's what it sounded like. Because I did some recordings with a couple of these guys. I'll be posting these here in the next couple of days. but it's bad. It's like, I mean, I'm in the U.S. It would be unheard of. It would be unheard of in the U.S. for police to be putting up with what they're putting up with from Muslims persecuting ex-Muslims right there in the U.K. So that's it. One follow-up question. So you're saying
Yep.
that you're not showing your faces. It's a safety concern because ex-Muslim in an area where people very quickly recognize people from the internet. I've been telling people we got recognized way more over there than I do over here. I get recognized like once or twice a month in the US in various places. Over there, we were recognized multiple times per day, every day, by Muslims and non-Muslims. So everywhere we went, doors, as soon as people saw us, they were like, hey, you're from YouTube, and stuff like that. So people are paying attention to what goes online. But anyway, hypothetical. Suppose you were to move to the US, would you then be comfortable enough to like show your faces and stuff?
Yes, and we've definitely prayed about that, and we are very comfortable with that. It's really just the dynamic of living here, and plus some family that is obviously still Muslim, and other things, jobs and things like that as well, that just really complicated if we were to publicly just show our faces. But yeah, if we're in America and we are we don't have a problem. Nothing would be holding us back in that way.
If you think of a lone female who leaves Islam, then gets married to a Christian apostate, if you think of the honor sort of related things, people can get very upset about that kind of thing.
Oh, very.
Yep.
Oh, I was just going to say, and just from experience wise, they have a problem with the marriage too. Like Nabil's parents had a big problem with him getting married to a Christian woman because it was like they still had hope that he was going to return to Islam. And then when he marries a Christian woman, it's like he's taking an extra step, which was going to make it even more difficult for him to come back to Islam. Exactly. And so it was like it was heartbreaking for them that he was getting married to a Christian woman. So yeah. All right.
Yeah, they don't even know. They don't even know about me.
We've actually kept that secret
because they've cut contact from Daughter of Christ like many years ago. So we don't have any contact with them. So they don't even know that I exist, and so it would just create other problems as well. We're not ashamed of it or anything. They just don't have any contact with us. So yeah.
It's very weird dynamics. Very weird. Very strange.
Hey guys, so what do you think? Should we should these like ex-Muslims and so on, should we start crowdfunding them to come to the US and get started over here where they could be safe? I think that's a good idea. We could have a big rescue shop where we take everyone who's at risk of persecution over there, take them to a nice safe place here in the US.
Someone is saying I'm people of the book. I'm not people of the book. I'm an apostate.
Yeah.
The difference.
Is it a Muslim saying that?
No, this lady, Tara Mora. There's a different ruling for apostates.
Yeah, apostates so a Muslim that becomes a Christian, for example, is not a person of the book. They're called an apostate.
A person of the book is the one who gets born into a family, a Christian or Jewish family.
So it looks like people are saying, yes, we should go ahead and get everyone out of there.
Get all the ex-Muslims out.
Yeah. I like that idea. At least the ones that would be doing awesome research over here. So people are saying, yes.
Well,
maybe move you and Anthony Rogers and God Logic in and move us out. Do a swap.
One more thing before we start.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because you guys are talking about translating and so on. How much different is it for some of the more like classical works, like if you're reading the Hadith or something like that, or history about Tabari or something like that? Because I know language changes over time. So how difficult is it to translate that sort of thing?
Yeah, so there's like you said, there's different levels. Like the Quran is at a certain level of Arabic, but even within the Quran itself, you see like different like levels of Arabic. Some of it is like more poetic, others is like just kind of sloppy or put together. So, but yeah, then you have like Hadith.
Liar. It's all perfect.
Yeah, it's all perfect. Then you have like hadith literature, and then you have commentaries, which it's not the same style, but you're gonna have similarities with like grammatical constructions and things like that, vocabulary, but it's not gonna be in like the same kind of style that the Quran is in.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's definitely different than like modern Arabic today. Like if you pick up a newspaper today and you read that, it's going to be different than like like you said, picking up a commentary from like the 10th century or something.
But it's not unknowable. It's
Yeah.
not, if you have good education in Fusha, which is the classical Arabic, you can read it. And you can understand it. Arabic is not this mystical language that can never be translated.
That's how Muslims try to portray
It's
it.
not at all. Whatever you can say in English, you can say in Arabic. And there are different styles. Like if you read Shakespeare, it's different from if you read a newspaper today, but you still understand it. You may need to look up a couple of words, but you still get it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to demystify, this mystical language. There's nothing mystical about it at all.
And I was asking that because I don't remember the exact year, but you're talking like 2007 or 2008. So you're in the 2007 to 2008 range. And Nabil and I, we actually sat down and wrote down a list of things that we wanted to accomplish before we're done. Things that we thought were like important to get done. So like he wanted to write an autobiography of his journey and stuff like that. So he actually did that. I don't have that list. He had it, so I have no idea where it is. So I don't remember what's on it, except for a couple of things that we actually did. But I remember one thing on there that we agreed we wanted to do that we never did. And that was, we wanted to get Ibn Abi Dawud's Kitab al-Masahif translated so that people would have it in English. Because that's where, when people ask where we find out about. So anyway, everyone who's watching, Ibn Abi Dawud, that's the son of the Hadith collector, Abu Dawud. And he put together a giant book on differences in the Quran, like differences between Ibn Masud's Quran and Ubay ibn Ka'b's Quran and the Zayd ibn Thabit. Yeah, so he put together lists of those and disagreements they have. So when we talk about Ibn Masud having 111 chapters in his Quran and Ubay having 116 and Zayd putting 114 in his, that comes from Ibn Abi Dawud's Kitab al-Masahif. And so that's one thing, since it's just loaded with Quran differences. It's one more like nail in the coffin of this perfect preservation myth, and shows just how sloppy the early process was. Anyway, guys, is that something where a team could be assembled to translate that at some point, and then we we put it out?
Yeah, I've actually translated portions of it for Sister Hatun. It's very easy to translate because it's repetitive. Because they say, oh, so and so narrated this, and then they say so and so narrated this, and it's a word difference. So you actually, it's actually the same thing over a few pages, but with just different narrators.
And a lot of times they'll have like different hadith about like, compilation of the Quran, or what did Ibn Masud think about his rejection of it, and like different chapters. So yeah, me as well. We've just looked at this and we've translated certain like portions of it. But yeah, definitely that's something that's doable.
It's very doable.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm hearing is, get these guys out of the crap hole UK into a nice safe spot where concealed carrying firearms is perfectly legal. And so you guys can walk around totally strapped in case a jihadi ever decides to mess with you. And you could be translating all of these important works that still need to be translated. All right. Sounds like a little plan. We'll discuss that later. All right. But let's go ahead and go ahead and jump into it.
All right, cool. So just kind of as an introduction, or some like kind of preliminary comments, Muslims, they talk about this chain of narration that we have. We have this reliable chain that takes us from today all the way back to Muhammad. They say that, we can trace not just hadith, but actually the Qurans have this chain as well. So if you open up a Quran, Arabic Qurans, they start with this chain. They say it was from this person to this person to this person to this person to the companions to Muhammad. And so everything in Islam has this chain of narration, hadith or Quran. And so with that, just kind of a little bit of background, I want to play a clip here from Ali Dawa because he expresses this through the means of a sheikh that he's translating or speaking, and he kind of gives his feedback. But it's really important because he emphasizes that this is like the basis of Islam, the basis of the religion, this chain of narration. So it starts with the sheikh kind of like reading, I learned it from this person, from this person. It's kind of boring and repetitive, so I cut a lot of that stuff out, but check this out. Let's start with the clip here. Let's go.
So you see, as the sheikh's going along, you were talking about, possibly, when I say in every century there's a name, because obviously there was maybe in that century you would have maybe 2-3 people living, but you can see where it's going. And and if I'm not mistaken, he's quoting from his teacher, that from his teacher is going all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ. This is fundamental to our religion. Watch this. SubhanAllah, the only thing I memorized is probably a recipe how to make a milkshake. So everything that is quoted, the chain of transmission going all the way down to Bukhari, and from Bukhari, so there is specific chains in Bukhari where the chain is like very short. There's 2 to 3 people between Bukhari, Imam Bukhari, may Allah have mercy on him, and the Prophet, peace be upon him. Some of them, I think they refer to this as a golden chain. Yeah. Okay. So basically, there's 3 people in between them. And what was the hadith? So now he's mentioned the chain and he's mentioning the hadith. What's the hadith? This is very important, guys. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says upon me that which I did not say, then let him take his seat in the fire. That anyone that says something that the Prophet didn't say, intentionally let him take his place in the fire, because you're lying against the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this is very profound, because the whole point of the chain of transmission that we have, be it from Bukhari, Muslim, Abu
can you
Dawud,
pause this for a second?
Yes.
I'm trying to anticipate where this is going, but he's saying you got a problem basically with liars who would say something false about Muhammad. And if you're that kind of person, then you're going to the fire. So I'm anticipating. Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure I was thinking ahead there. All right, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, man, you already nailed it. All right, so here we go. Let's it's almost done here. Here we go.
And one more, what is it, Sheikh? Nisai, yes. So the 6th book of Hadith, yeah? So what we learn from this, brothers and sisters, that our religion is based on this transmission.
All right. So there we go. The Islam is based on this transmission.
Islam is based. You see? It's based.
Yeah, not that type of based. But then, like you said, the hadith itself is very important as well, because this hadith actually says that if anyone lies about Muhammad, then that person, saying he said something he didn't say, then that person will have their place in the hellfire. So It's very important. And just want to, before we get into what the scholars say about the chain of narration, the chain of transmission in relation to the Quran, let's focus on this here. And this is just like by the way, this is actually an AI generated picture. AI is getting pretty good. So
yeah, I want to learn that. Everyone's coming up with these dope thumbnails and stuff like that. I'm like, oh man, you must have like this brilliant graphics guy making you that. And they're like, no, I said, hey, Chat GPT, make me a graphic, and it took 10 seconds. I'm like,
exactly. What? I said, I was like, hey, just make me an angry Muslim waving his fist. And so that's what they did. So I have the Muslim here very angrily waving his fist. Weak hadith. And so the question is, what do Muslims mean when they say that hadith is weak, or it's unreliable, untrustworthy, or it's fabricated? What do they mean by that? So the answer is that hadiths are graded off of the reputation of the narrators of the hadith and not based on the content of the hadith. So, and that's another AI picture, by the way, as well. He's supposed to be grading some papers there. So hadith is graded based off of the narrators who narrate it, not based off of the contents. Okay, it's really important. So I have some quotes here. One from Shadi Nasser, and he says, "It suffices to say that hadith scholarship paid more attention to the isnad, which is the chain of transmission, than the matan, which is the content of hadith, despite some documented attempts to not completely ignore the latter." And so we have a quote here from Jonathan Brown, who is a fan of yours. I don't know if you know he's a fan of yours.
Well, he retweets me quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got him here. He's a big fan of yours. He said that whatever you say, you're right
Yeah,
about
let's read
it.
that. Yeah, read that whole thing at the bottom.
Okay, so I just Googled David Wood, and I'd just like to say he's 100% right about anything he says, and I agree 100%, and am 100% compliant. No arguments from me. I'm just part of the woodwork. Carry on with the wonderful stuff you do.
Now,
So-
in case anyone wonders about that, so he's a convert to Islam. He's an Islamic scholar. I have books by him on my bookshelves. But I came up somehow, and he says he Googled me, and this is a joke. This is a joke. He's basically saying he looked up my criminal background and my mental health history, and he's saying it.
Yeah.
David's 100% right. He's right about everything he says. So that's actually pretty funny. It's a funny comment in an area where lots of people don't have a sense of humor. So hats off to him there. But go ahead.
So yes, he's a big fan of yours. This Muslim scholar here, and he says here, Sheldon also references him in his book, and he says that the subjectivity of content criticism, where what may seem logical to one could be illogical and incomprehensible to another, was what led Muslim scholars to employ more objective methods for evaluating and authenticating hadiths, namely isnad criticism, chain of transmission criticism, and cross-examination of transmitters. So what he's saying here is that if you are to judge a hadith purely by the content, like what does it say, then that can differ between who's the one doing the grading. Like to David Wood, he might say, hey, this contradicts the Quran, but someone else might say, oh, no, I think it actually lines up with the Quran. So he's saying that's kind of like a method that the Muslim scholars, they just kind of abandoned because they saw it was too subjective. So they try to come up with a more objective way to grade hadith and say, okay, what we're going to do is now we're not going to judge based on the content. We're going to judge based off of the narrators. Like, are they reliable? Are they trustworthy?
And so the Sirah guys like Ibn Ishaq and so on, they had a bit of a different methodology from the Hadith guys who consolidated power around themselves, but you could see it even there. I mean, the version of Ibn Ishaq we have is from Ibn Hisham, and he says he took out embarrassing material. So that would have been a situation where he's not grading something based on how historically reliable it is, or how much, the evidence that he has for a chain of transmission. He's saying this is a messed up story, so I'm taking this out. So the content is embarrassing. So I guess they had the parallel issue with the Hadith guys, in that if you're just grading based on the story, well, different people are going to have a problem with different stories. In fact, regionally they would have. Joshua Little talks a bit about this in his his thesis is on the hadiths about the age of Aisha, but he has a long section going through hadith criticism. But he argues that early on, Islam was basically, you had regional versions of Islam. So they all believed in like prayer, they all believed in certain basics and so on. But you go to one area and they teach that mutta is okay. You go to a different area and they teach that mutta is forbidden and so on. And so notice, if you were looking at a hadith about mutta, just based on the region you're in, you might grade it as weak or strong based on your personal beliefs about whether mutta is still allowed and so on. So it would be a problem basing it on the content. So it sounds, what you're saying is, in order to do away with the problem of different people not liking or liking certain kinds of content, or being in an area where that content would be acceptable and another area where it wouldn't be acceptable, in order to kind of get past that, they said, no, we got to fix our eyes on this list of names. And it's a more objective, less subjective, more objective standard of the quality of a hadith. Is that about right?
Exactly. Yeah, that seems to be what Jonathan Brown and Sheldon Nasser conclude. And so that's kind of what they do. And we could compare that to other ways of doing history and like what we would think about that as Christians. But this is what the Muslims have done. So let's see if we apply this method of narrator criticism, like people transmitting information via hadith, sayings of Muhammad or traditions. how do you judge the trustworthiness of these things? Well, you go by the narrators, the transmitters. So when you apply that scholarship to the transmitters of the Quran, what do you come up with? So first, before we get into that though, I want to say, like, this is a question. So what do they use? What standards do they use to determine this guy's reliable, this guy's not reliable? And so they
Hang on,
have
hang on,
four-
hang on. That's
the Quran?
important.
What do you?
No, that's important. I want everyone to make sure of that, what you just did right there.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
to recap, because some people just understood everything you said. Some people come along, they're very new to all this, and so they're confused by what's a hadith and so on. So just to make sure everyone understood what you just said, you are first talking about hadiths and how they came up with their hadith methodology. Some people were assessing the reliability of hadiths using a very subjective methodology, whether they find the content personally acceptable or their version of Islam that's in their head does it line up with that. And so they're judging the reliability of hadiths very subjectively. So you're going to get completely different answers on whether a hadith is reliable depending on who you ask and what that person happens to believe. So they came up with a methodology that's more objective. Here's a list of names, and we have a list of names of reliable people. So if the people in the isnad, if the people in the chain of transmission are all reliable, that's how you decide whether a hadith is reliable, not just based on the content, which you may or may not like. So it's a more objective method. And then what you're saying is, since they have this objective method that they finally agreed upon with hadith criticism, namely that you look at the chain of transmission and the list of names to make sure every person on that list is reliable. And if you've got unreliable people on there, you've got a problem. You basically have a weak narration because you have weak narrators. You're saying now we're going to apply their same methodology to the transmission of the Quran, because the Quran went from person to person to person, so that you could say, I got this reading from so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so. And you're saying what happens when we apply the exact same criteria that they came up with for objectively judging the reliability of content. Let's take their objective method for assessing the reliability of content. Let's apply the exact same method to their chains of transmission of the Quran. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Let's just pause right there because we do have a few super chats. I don't want them to get built up. So we'll go through a couple super chats real quick and then jump right back into what you're talking about there.
All right.
Shiba Dog clapping his hands. They still don't show us the super stickers. They just describe them for us.
Oh, I thought someone was saying that. Okay.
D Wood, if Sinwar really believes in Jannah, why is he afraid to die and in a tunnel? Is he faking? That is kind of an issue where these guys, we love death more than they love life, and then they run and hide in tunnels to avoid dying. I think you could justify it from that perspective. Like, I want to accomplish more in my life before I go. But yeah, the more they hide, the more doubts you have about how much they really love death. So they can defend it, but yeah, especially, but I'm a billionaire. I don't want to die.
Exactly.
Jenna is here for me. But Dr. Wood, because you're on time, I'm late. Yeah, that's how it works. When AP's not around, when no Turkish dudes are involved, this is what happens. Before you start, can any of you prove your medical doctors? No, sadly. It's only the mighty Zakir Naik who can do that. No comment from Nuwan there. Sheikh Mike Winjelinge says, David, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but that person sounds like a woman. Once again, I beg you to buy a whiteboard and stop disrespecting Allah. Yeah, Jai, you're gonna have to get a whiteboard for Daughter of Christ. We won't be able to see. We won't be able to see it.
Yeah.
You can't see my face now. You can't hear my voice.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Sneeko saw that Ali Dawa thing where he did it with his wife,
and he did a parody of it.
Yeah, he did it. Sneeko did a parody of that where he got this girl in full niqab and not his wife. just some girl, and he admitted, yeah, this is
It's better.
this is mixing, right? This is like, they're not allowed
Free
to
mixing.
like
Yeah.
remixing.
Mix, yeah.
Yeah, so he admitted that part, but then he actually just gave this girl a whiteboard, and he started asking her questions, and he was
Everyone's
Nice.
mocking it.
he was definitely making fun of it. Yeah,
Nice. These are good times, fun times.
good times.
Wait, so all I have to do is get a wife? Wait, so all I have to do to get a wife is to humiliate a female in public debate? Noted. Thanks for the tip, David. I guess he's talking about me and Nabil. Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yep. Isaiah 53. Let's see.
Nice.
D Wood, I watch you, whatever show you're on. Quick question. Why is your camera angle different on Jihad Watch? It's been bothering me. When Robert sends me, people use different programs. When Robert sends me the link, for some reason, the program is not recognizing my camera. And it's just, I have a totally tricked out, awesome laptop, but I have an old desktop that I only use for live streaming. And so certain things just aren't recognized in the system and so on, and certain things don't work. Anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, I eventually just have to get a new desktop, but since I only use it for live streaming, it's kind of like last on the list of things that I need to do. But eventually I'll get a new tricked out desktop, and then everything should work swimmingly. A couple more here. Crowdfunding is a yes. I support this. Yes, crowdfunding makes everything awesome. Where is the legendary AP? What does the GOAT say? AP will be on. I'll be on with AP later. We have our live stream at our regular time. Did want to get this in because they're in the UK and it's an earlier time, so this worked out for this. And the GOAT says this. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. God bless you all, DOC and Jai. Thank you for the work you do. Love your channel. Subscribe, everyone. Saw some of this on Avery's stream. Blew my mind. Yeah, I have the link to Jai and DOC's channel in the description box. Be sure to subscribe and check out their stuff. They're ripping apart. And guys, I always say we gotta be relentless, right? Because every time we expose a lie, they come up with a new lie. And you just, it feels like you're playing a Dawa whack-a-mole with every new lie that comes up. But guess what? You just have to keep doing it. No matter how many times it feels like, gosh, every time we refute a lie, they just come up with a new lie and they just go on as if that's the truth now. And then they run with that for years until we expose that as a lie. And how long do we got to keep this up? And the answer is we'll keep it up as long as we need to crush it. That's how it works.
Amen.
We're going to keep it. Be relentless. Be relentless. Hi, David.
Amen.
St. Murad has made an honest translation of the Quran. Please support his work. Well, give me a link. Have you guys heard of Caloridianism? By the way, don't think this had any real bearing on Muhammad believing the Trinity included Mary. Interesting, though. I have heard that suggested. I don't know enough about it. I've never looked into it, but if there's someone that you think would be good to look into that, let me know. I'd be happy to have them on. I'm going to need the Checkmate Jihadi shirt because I'm going to start evangelizing towards Muslims in Germany in fall. Therefore, it could be helpful. Hey, yeah, maybe we'll have the Checkmate Jihadis, but in German. And you can rock it. The Arabic will be the same because the Arabic is always the same in the Quran, unless you actually look at a bunch of them. D. Wood's girlfriend is watching you right now for the first time. D. Wood's girlfriend?
No, I think they're saying their girlfriend is watching you right now.
Oh, okay. D. Wood, girlfriend is watching you right now. It's like,
yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes more sense. Another super sticker, giant parrot character waving flags and turning around, making the buildings in front of him tremble. And Joshua here says, as a brother, that is a genius. Save heads, keep in Christ, and guide others to Christ, and matchmaking in holy matrimony if the trajectory continues as it is.
Oh, yes.
And shout out to ProNode22 for gifting channel memberships. All right, so we're good now. We're all caught up. And Jai DOC, the floor is yours.
All right. So the question then becomes, what is the criterion that these scholars use to determine whether or not a hadith narrator or transmitter of hadith is reliable? And they've come up with four different, you can categorize it in roughly four different ways. So Shadi Nasser in his book here just gives us these four basic categorizations that they use. Number one, they have to be a Muslim. Number 2, they need to be of a mature age. Number 3, academic proficiency. And number 4, moral integrity. And I always thought it'd be really fun to apply this to like Muhammad, for example. Like, does he have academic proficiency? Does he have moral integrity? Would he pass as a reliable transmitter of hadith? So I thought that'd be really funny. But if you look into these in like a little bit more detail, so he details really 3 and 4, so academic proficiency and moral integrity. What is meant by academic proficiency? Well, this means like, your memory should be like perfect with the material that you are relaying. You need to be able to quote it like in any situation, any circumstance. Like, what does it say? Say it, and then you need to have like attentive literacy or understanding as well, which is you need to be familiar with the variants, or let's say if there's any slight changes in this hadith, you need to be aware of that and kind of how does it let's say the hadith you're memorizing like 5 different ways to recite it. You need to be aware of these like 5 different ways. You need to have some sort of familiarity with them. Recognize when it's changed. Okay, so here's the other one here, moral integrity, and this one is pretty interesting. So the first one is broken into conduct and behavior, and the examples that Muslim scholars give, like they say, okay, is a person, like that's a question, like a checklist. Are they known for perpetuating sin? Is that something that they're known for? And then do they have ill social reputation? What does it mean to have an ill social reputation? So here's one of the things that would kind of get you erased. You wouldn't be reliable in this sense because you'd have bad moral integrity. If, for example, you urinate in public while standing up, if you tug on your beard in front of an audience, I don't. If you speak ill of others, you might expect that one, and then eating or drinking on the streets. So Muslim scholars of Hadith tradition, they note those and say, look, these are different ways we will judge whether or not you have, moral credibility or not. And then the last thing is, what is your reputation amongst other reliable narrators? So the ones who have passed the test before you, what do they have to say about you? Do they say that you're, are you a good person? Are you bad? Are you trustworthy? Are you of good memory? What do they say? So those are kind of the criterias there that they use to determine who is and who is not a trustworthy transmitter of hadith. Okay? All right. So here's an example of a weak hadith here. So it says, narrated by Ali, and it says that the Messenger of Allah said, whoever recites the Quran and memorizes it, making lawful what makes it lawful, making lawful what it makes lawful, and unlawful what it makes unlawful, Allah will permit him to paradise due to it and grant him intercession for 10 of his family members who were to be consigned to the fire. And so this is a weak
deal.
Yeah. But this is an example of a weak hadith. And we're going to see later on. Yeah. Why is it weak? We're going to see later on why is it weak. All right. So what do these same scholars who... Yeah, you want to say? Oh yeah. So what do these same scholars say about the readers or the transmitters of the Qur'ans? What do they say about them? So here's like a list of them here. We're only going to be focusing on one reading, which is the Hafs reading, which he gets it from a guy called Awesome, and we're going to show here. This is Yasser Qadhi's book. He says like 95% of the Muslim world reads from Hafs, is his Quran. So pretty important to know. Like, what do they say about him?
And go ahead and break down what this is all referring to for people who didn't catch our last live stream about this.
Okay, yeah. So you have in the 10th century, there's like 70 or so different readings of the Quran that are just floating around, and
you mean different dialects?
No, not different dialects.
Not different dialects. Okay, that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah. Nope. Different wordings that can amount to different legal rulings. They can amount to contradictions between meanings. Some of them have added words or some words taken away. Yeah, so pretty serious differences. In fact, we have a Muslim scholar who says that amongst these readings that are now canonical, that there's about 30% of meaningful differences that completely change the meaning. Which, if you compare to like, the New Testament, and you take someone like Daniel Wallace, who says it's actually like less than 1% of variants actually change the meaning. They're both meaningful and viable. So anyway, here you have around the 10th century, you have a guy called Ibn Mujahid who is like, there's 70 different readings of the Quran that are floating around that he's at least aware of. 70 readings. So here you have this new religion of Islam. He's probably thinking, all right, we got to narrow it down from 70. Well, let me just pick 7. I'm just going to pick 7 readings, and we're going to go from there. So we're going to limit our readings to 7. And these are going to be the authoritative readings that are, across the Muslim world, that these are the ones that you need to, for rituals, like, worshiping and praying, you use these versions.
Now, hang on. This is making no sense. You're talking about 70 different readings of the Quran with differences in the Arabic, different words, different meanings, giving contradictory meanings and so on. And this is after this entire cleansing of the Quran that Uthman did, whereby he ordered everyone to hand over the Qurans. He burned them in a giant pile, a giant bonfire, while people are sitting there. People are sitting there screaming, Ahruf, Ahruf, Ahruf are on fire. And he had all these things burned and put out a standardized version of the Quran. And you're saying that they still ended up with 70 different versions anyway?
Yeah, 70 plus different versions after all that. Imagine that. So imagine that never happened.
Yeah. Imagine how many versions they'd have if he didn't burn all the early variants. So hang on. Because Sheikh Yasser Qadhi literally wrote the book on the sciences of the Quran. But I have video clips of Sheikh Yasser Qadhi. Even though behind the scenes, when he's talking to scholarly people or people who are on the path to becoming scholars, he's telling them about the different Qira'at, the different Qurans in different parts of the world. But he said to a popular audience for the Why Islam campaign, he said, since the time of Uthman, there has never been one single letter of difference between any two Qurans. Can we say that he knew indisputably that was a complete lie when he said it?
100%. He knew that was a lie and he lied. Yeah.
Wow.
And Farid, go ahead.
Farid said that Yasser Qadhi lied. We got him on a clip.
Yeah. Responding to the video that David put out, Farid actually said, guys, can we say Yasser Qadhi lied? He said, yes, he did lie. He admitted it.
He did lie.
Yeah.
He admitted it. And then he put the clips side by side.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a peace in the Middle East, ladies and gentlemen. We had Farid agreeing with David Wood on something. And what we agreed on was that Yasser Qadhi was lying about variants in the Quran. Shocker that lying is so normal, even for Muslim scholars. But go ahead.
Exactly. So you have in the 10th century, Ibn Mujahid, he you could say he canonized, or these are the now official readings, these 7 readings, which are the ones that you see here when it says reader. It tells you the district, Medina, Mecca, Damascus, Basra, etc. So these are the readers on the, I think you guys can see the mouse here. These are the readers. And so those are the 7 that he officiated. And the people who objected or didn't accept his ruling, there are cases where he would imprison them. He'd have them, because he had good standing with the government, with the rulers. And so he would take these people who disagreed and said, no, I'm not going to, I have the reading of Ubay, I have the reading of Ibn Masud. And he said, no, you're going to accept these readings. And, to the point where they'd go to prison, they'd be flogged, beaten, forced to recant their positions and accept his 7 readings. So these were really forced upon the Muslim world. And then that wasn't enough. Ibn al-Jazari comes in the 15th century, and he comes and adds 3 more additional readings. And in that time period, they limited each reader to 2 students or 2 transmitters. And so those are the people that we're going to be examining today. So you have for example, the top one for the transmitters, you have Qalun, you have Warsh, and they're getting that from Nafi. So Nafi is the reader, and then he has 2 students here. So we're going to be examining what do the scholars say, for example, about this person, and then the reader. But we're going to be looking specifically at Hafs. So that's going to be the focus right here. So Hafs is right here. He gets it from Asim. And we're going to see what do the scholars say about this Quran, this most popular Quran. Yasser Qadhi puts it as 95% of the Muslim world use this Quran.
So we are talking When you say most popular Quran, you're talking about the Hafs.
Yep.
And basically, if you were to go around to various places, if you were to add up everyone, you'd find that about 95% of Muslims are using the Hafs today. And as I understand it, it's because that was the version of that the Ottoman Empire favored. And so that one
Yeah.
sort of drowned out over time. It drowned out other versions. But then for the 1924 Cairo edition, with the birthday of the Quran that people are mostly familiar with is next month, the 100th birthday. You could correct me.
Yes.
You could correct me if I'm getting anything wrong here. I'm trying to tie it all
No, you're
together.
right.
But
Yeah, you're
the
right.
1924 Cairo edition, when they decided to put out a standardized Quran, they used the Hafs. And so
Yep.
this is what's distributed, and this is what's been distributed around the world. And so that's why you have, in other words, it's not something about this was just somehow recognized as the most reliable version. It's just the empire that took over in Islam. This was their local version. And so they spread it throughout their empire. And then when in the early 20th century, Muslims were saying, hey, we need a standardized version to send around the world. This is the one that had become most popular because of the Ottoman Empire. And that's the reason. It had nothing to do with like internal reliability or examining
Exactly.
manuscripts or something like that. This is the most popular and this is the one we're going with.
Yeah, and it's important to note that, like you said, the Ottomans. So this is recent history that this became the most popular reading. But actually, if you go back a couple hundred years ago, for example, you're going to see actually there were other readings that were more prominent in the Middle East and other readings that were prominent in parts of North Africa. And so historically, Hafs was not the popular reading. And so what's really funny about that is that you have like the standardized text of the Quran is kind of like Hafs today. So that's a standardized text, like you said. And so whenever they're like printing commentaries of the Quran, the default text that they're printing in the commentaries is Hafs. But none of the commentators, like they like, for example, if you go to like At-Tabari, for example, he wouldn't have, like, Hafs wasn't his reading of, that wasn't the Quran that he was reading. So sometimes he'll be commenting on a verse, and because when the printed, like the companies that just kind of print these commentaries, they just use Hafs as the standard version. That his commentary on the verse doesn't line up with how Hafs is wording it, and so it's kind of funny because they're imposing Hafs onto like someone like At-Tabari, and when he's giving commentary on it, he's not actually commenting on the Hafs text, because sometimes he's using a text type that differs from Hafs, and so the point he's making actually it actually contradicts Hafs in some places, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So like it's like for the New Testament, for example, let's say like the NA28, for example, like the Greek text, like the standardized Greek text, and let's say like we impose that reading on all the commentaries that, like, let's say the Greek church fathers would have, and let's say that the church fathers, when they're commenting on a passage, that the wording differs from the NA28, but like it doesn't really seem like it matches up. So that's kind of the situation with Muslims, because we're going to impose this as a standard on all the different commentaries and anywhere where they're printing the Quran, basically 95% of the Muslim world, at least.
Well, as long as they have the most reliable guy, that's okay.
Yeah, you'd hope so. You hope that this guy's like most reliable guy. You'd hope so. So this is what this is the most popular Quran. This is Hafs right here. And so, like I said, if you go to any version of the Quran, any Arabic version of the Quran, you open up in the first couple pages, you're going to see the chain of transmission. So this is what it says here. So this is the Quran. It goes from Hafs, it goes to Asim, Abi Abdurrahman, it goes to Uthman, to Ali, to Zayd, Ubay, to Muhammad. And so that's the chain of narration. That's a chain of transmission for Hafs. So the question is now, are the narrators in this chain considered reliable? So now let's apply those scholars of Hadith criticism when it comes to the transmitters of are they reliable or are they not, based on the standards that we saw. What happens when we apply that to this Quran here?
One second. Go back.
Oh, yeah.
So just because one additional issue is that some people tuned in late and missed what we were discussing earlier. So earlier, Earlier, you went through how Muslim scholars eventually would assess the reliability of a hadith. And in order to get away just judging it based on its content, which would be subjective to some extent, you may not like what it's saying, and so you may think it's unreliable just because you don't like it or because it goes against your interpretation of the Quran, when your interpretation of the Quran may be wrong or something like that, that they came up with a more objective method, which is just based on the transmission, the list of names. I got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, all the way back to a companion of Muhammad who heard it from Muhammad. And that you look at this list of names and you assess the hadith, you assess the reliability of the hadith on the reliability of all the people on this list of names. So all the people who are transmitting this, are they reliable? If all these guys are reliable transmitters, then you can trust the hadith. And what you're doing now is you're saying that Qurans are the same. If you get a Quran and you know what it's saying in the Arabic, it's telling you this Quran came from so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so, all the way back to Muhammad. And you're saying we can take the exact same criteria for examining the reliability, the trustworthiness of the people who are transmitting it that's used in the hadith methodology and apply it right here to whether we are getting a reliable transmission of the Quran.
Exactly.
All
right. So here's our chain here, and just another kind of way to visualize it. Okay, here it is: Hafs to Asim, Abi Rahman, Uthman, Ali, Zayd, Ubay, and Muhammad. Okay, so this is the isnad, or the chain of the Hafs version of the Quran. So let's start with the first one on the list. Hafs. Is he considered reliable according to the scholarship that that David just summarized and laid out? Is he considered reliable according to that?
Of course he is. 95% of Muslims use that Quran. It's got to be the best of the best. But go ahead.
It's got to be. So just a little bit of biography about who he is. One point that's pretty important is that the guy who he's getting the Quran, so the one he's getting the Quran from is Awesome. That's actually his stepfather. Okay, so it's like his stepfather. So that's interesting to note. Now let's see, what do they say? Okay, so we go to Ibn Hajar's book, and it's about reliability of these transmitters of what does it say? So we have a bunch of scholars here, and you could just kind of wave your finger, take your pick, and kind of let's look at what some of them say here. Let's go to some of the more popular names. Like on the bottom of this, like Imam Muslim, the one who compiled Sahih Muslim. What did he say? He said that Hafs is rejected in Hadith. Okay, Al-Bukhari. I'm starting from the bottom, going up. Al-Bukhari said they abandoned him, so he's abandoned in Hadith. Okay,
just to be clear, these are Hadith scholars commenting on the reliability of this guy named Hafs. They're talking about him as how reliable a transmitter of narrations he is.
Exactly. Yes. So you go up a little bit. It says, his hadith is weak. I intentionally abandoned him. Others said, Ibn Ma'in said he's not reliable. We go up here a little bit. Says that the Hafs reading is more correct than Shu'bah. Shu'bah is the other reading of Awesome. But Shu'bah is more reliable than Hafs. So he's saying, hey, look, so Awesome, these two students that he had, Hafs and Shu'bah, yes, Hafs is a better, more correct than him in terms of the reading, but Shu'bah is more reliable, more trustworthy. Ahmed bin Hanbal said that he's rejected in Hadith. So it gets even worse. So let's go to the next slide here. So we talked about Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Now let's go to An-Nisa'i. I said he is not reliable, and his hadith should not be written down. And he said in another place, he's rejected in Hadith. Okay? You go on, and you have another one saying his narrations are strange. Asaji, this one is very, very interesting here. He says he narrated, he narrated from someone who's rejected and in others, and he says he fabricated hadith. So that's a huge charge to say that Hafs fabricated hadith.
Yeah,
Huge charge. That's
that's different from saying, like, I can say you have a weak memory or you comb
yeah,
your beard in public. I mean, you scratch your beard in public and you're unreliable for that. But if I say you
yeah.
fabricated stuff, that's you're inventing stuff.
And what did Muhammad say about someone who invents stuff?
Yeah, you're going to hell.
Yeah,
One way
exactly.
ticket to hell.
Exactly. So another one, he's weak in hadith. And now here we have another interesting part here, where it says that Ibn Khirash says he is a liar. He's rejected. Why? Because fabricating hadith. He fabricates hadith. So he's a liar. He's actually called a liar.
Guys,
Yeah.
guys, understand this. So everyone who's watching, what you were told just a few years ago by Muslim scholars and Dawah guys, there's only one Quran perfectly preserved. Any two Qurans you could ever find anywhere in the history of Islam line up perfectly, dot for dot, letter for letter. That's what we were all told. It was all complete nonsense. It was all complete lies. You look at the actual history of Islam, entire chapters came up missing because Muslims were too lazy to recite them. Large passages came up missing because the only people who had those passages memorized died in battle. Verses are eaten by a sheep or a goat, depending on your source. 200 verses were lost just from Surah 33 alone. Yeah. And then you ended up with all these differences in the way people were reciting the Quran. Uthman, it becomes such a problem that Uthman, the third of the rightly guided caliphs, orders everyone to hand over whatever copies they have of the Quran, burns them all, puts out a standardized version, and before not too long, you end up with dozens of versions of the Quran, dozens of different versions of the Quran. Some guy comes along and says, I'm imposing these 7. I'm saying these are the 7 good ones. We're rejecting all the rest. Someone comes along after him and says, no, we need to add a few more. These guys are all making decisions about what is and is not considered the Quran. Like, what authority do these guys have to make those kinds of decisions? So this is going on all along. And so you have different versions of the Quran, and those different versions of the Quran come through different chains of transmitters. So how did you get this version of the Quran? Well, this version of the Quran came from so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, all the way back to Muhammad. This version of the Quran, it came from so-and-so, who got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so. You ended up with a situation where one particular version of the Quran, not because it was especially reliable, not because they went to manuscripts, but just because that's the one the Ottoman Empire spread when it controlled the Muslim world, that one became most popular. So that's the one that in 1924 was put out as the 1924 Cairo edition. They went with Hafs. But here we have Jai and Daughter of Christ, and they're going through what Muslim scholars in the area of the reliability of transmissions are saying about the guy who transmitted the most popular version of the Quran in the world. 95% of Muslims use this Quran, and they're just applying the methodology from Hadith studies, who's reliable and who's not. And they're pointing out that the guy who's responsible for the Quran that is used by 95% of Muslims in the world is transmitted by a guy who was a known fabricator and liar.
Yes.
What's that mean? If this guy were transmitting a hadith, they would not trust him. But he's the one who gives 95% of Muslims their Quran. They wouldn't trust this guy with a story about Muhammad. They wouldn't trust him. But you trust him with the Quran? And and most Muslims would reject other versions of the Quran if it didn't line up with this one, when it's the one that was popular in the Ottoman Empire, and the guy who transmitted it's a known liar. That's the situation they're in with their perfectly preserved book. Anyway, boy, this is funny, wild stuff.
So apart from just being weak in hadith and a fabricator of hadith, which means he's a liar, a fabricator, he actually is something else as well. He's also a thief. So Yahya bin Sa'id said from Shu'bah. Now Shu'bah was the other student of Asim. He's the other canonical reader. He said, Hafs bin Sulaiman took a book from me and did not return it. And he used to take people's books to copy them. So he used to take their books and he would just keep them and then keep them to himself, and then he'd take other people's books and he'd copy them down, like as if they were his own or something.
So that's the
Well,
character.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he's just imitating Muhammad there, right? I mean, Muhammad is the pattern of conduct, and Muhammad used to steal everyone else's stuff, so can't blame him
Good.
for that.
That's a good point. So he's a thief, okay? He's a liar. And so again, we have another kind of repeated story here saying that Hafs was a liar. Now Ibn Hibban said that he used to forge and fabricate the chains of narration. So not just fabricating hadith now, but he used to fabricate the chains themselves.
Whoa.
So it's like that's another issue as well. So it's like, okay, if you guys are just judging the hadith by the chains, well, let me just fabricate a chain for you then. It's something that you guys all accept. And so he got called out for it by Ibn Hibban. He said, no, he used to forge and fabricate chains of hadith, of narration. So, okay. We have, then, he's weak. He is weak. Okay. You're weak.
Little weakling. So he's weak, he's a fabricator, he's a thief, and a liar.
Yeah.
So we can say that the Quran that is most widely used among Muslims in the world today was transmitted to them by a known liar, fabricator, and thief.
Exactly. So I have a video here from Farid who confirms these very points that we're making here, just to show that we're not just making this stuff up, but this is not like our inventions. So Farid gives what he thinks is a response to this, but normally what I do is I just play the question that he asks. And so in the context of the God Logic's live stream that we did this on, we just kind of played this clip and we allowed Muslims to answer the question because they would come on the stream and interact. But none of them actually did interact, by the way, except for like one. But
Shocker.
Anyway, here's the question that he raises here. So we just heard that he's a liar. Let's see what Farid says.
Okay, so there are two people who have, or at least two people who has been attributed to that have said that Hafs is a liar. The first is Yahya ibn Ma'in, and the second is Ibn Khiraj. That's the main concern. Because Yahya ibn Ma'in is a major scholar of hadith. So how is it possible that this major scholar of hadith referred to Hafs as a liar?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent question.
Good
So I just kind of
question.
leave it like that. Yeah, I just kind of leave it like that, and I let the Muslims come in and answer. But he goes on to say, like, well, the context is that his reading is the best reading, but he's a liar. So imagine the situation. You have Awesome. He's giving his his students all they're all his best student is a liar basically. So they're like the best you got is a liar. That's your top guy. Good job.
Yeah. Hey, where are we getting our Quran from? This guy. But he's a liar. He's still the best we've got.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's a fabricator. He's the best we got. He's a thief. He stole my book and never gave it back and then passed it off as his own. Which part of he's the best we could come up with didn't you understand? Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
People are asking about the source for all these.
Oh yes.
That's the Tahdhib al-Tahdhib from
Ibn Hajar.
Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who was one of the biggest
That's the
hadith
granddaddy.
scholars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are all coming from him.
Yeah, he's considered the best of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, ladies and gentlemen, when you're reading like Sahih al-Bukhari and so on, and sometimes you'll see information in parentheses and so on, a lot of times that is commentary from Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, clarifying things.
Yeah, he has commentary. Yeah,
He talked about 800 years after Muhammad.
Yeah.
So he's one of the classical scholars.
So this book is literally dedicated to I guess you could translate it as like the refinement of all refinement. Like we're gonna get you the best of the best.
Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, the refinement of the refined.
Yeah.
So he gives you like the best information, and all his information is how Hafs is a liar. And
exactly.
That's the best you could come up with.
And we have al-Bukhari now in his book. So al-Bukhari as well has a book on the weak narrators of hadith. And he narrates the same story where Shu'bah says that Hafs bin Sulaiman took a book from me and did not return it, and he used to take people's books and copy them. So this is from Al-Bukhari now. Al-Bukhari is narrating the same exact thing, and he also says above here that people they abandoned him. He wasn't accepted in Hadith. So Al-Bukhari. Another scholar here, another scholar of Hadith as well, Ibn al-Jawzi. This is the book of weak and rejected narrators. He kind of narrates the same stories here, where it says, he's weak, he's not trustworthy, he's a liar, he's abandoned. People like Ahmed bin Hanbal, Muslim, and Nisai, Al-Bukhari, they're all saying these things. And he fabricates hadith. He's a liar and he fabricates hadith. Yes, and he fabricates and forges chain of narration. So it's kind of like duplicated quotes from the other one, but this is another scholar now. First one is Ibn Hajar, and this one now is Ibn al-Jawzi. So check this out now. So we talked about this hadith earlier. I gave you an example of a weak hadith. And it's the one that says, like, basically, if you memorize the Quran and you live by it, you make lawful what it makes lawful, you make unlawful what it makes unlawful. Allah is going to admit you into paradise and then give you 10 people to intercede for, who would originally have otherwise been sent or consigned to hell. So you would probably imagine, who would fabricate a hadith like this? Well, someone who memorized the Quran, probably. So why is this weak? Well, why is this a weak hadith? Why? Because Hafs is in the chain. Hafs is the one narrating it.
Wow, guys, did you catch that? Did you
Yep.
catch that? So, guys, you can look up Jami at-Tirmidhi 2905.
Yep.
It's about, hey, if you recite the Quran, you're the man. You recite it, you're good to go. And this is classified as a weak hadith. It's da'if. It's weak. It's a little weakling. You can't trust it. And we say, why is this hadith weak? Why? We don't know. We see the grade, but we don't know why it's classified as weak. And Giant DOC here pointed out it's weak because it was transmitted by the same guy who gave 95% of the Muslims in the world the Quran that they use and trust completely.
This is literally what the Muslim scholars say for this hadith. This is literally what they say. They're saying, why is the chain not authentic? Why is it inauthentic? Because they say, why? Because Hafs is in the chain and he's nothing. You're nothing. He's nothing in hadith. That's one of them that says that. The other one says Hafs was the only one to narrate it, and Hafs was weak in hadith, so therefore it's inauthentic. The other one says here, Hafs bin Sulaiman, as a general rule, his hadith are not preserved due to his weakness. So this hadith that I showed you right here, this one right here, the scholars are telling us, 3 different scholars here, like Al-Albani, for example, was one of them, is telling us that actually, is it Al-Albani on? Anyway, maybe not one of these ones, but he also says that it's weak as well. But from what I remember, I have to maybe get that source. But anyway, we have these 3 different scholars here, 3 different scholars of hadith who are grading it and telling us, why is this very hadith rejected? It's because Hafs is in the chain. That's it. So Hafs.
That's the only reason they cited for it being weak.
That's it. Yeah. So, okay. Amazing. And so you might think that that's it. Okay. So, Hafs is like, that's okay. So Hafs is bad. Okay. Well, what about the other people in the chain? What do these scholars say about them?
It gets way worse.
It gets worse. So let's cross him out.
It gets worse?
Yeah, it gets worse. Yeah.
It gets worse than the guy who gave you your Quran and the version is named after is a big liar that can't be trusted with a hadith?
Exactly.
Huh.
You can't trust the guy with the hadith, but yet you trust him with your eternal life, with your Quran, with the Quran, the word of Allah. So now let's go to the guy who he got it from Awesome. So what do they say about him? What do they say about him? Is he reliable? All right, let's see. So this is what the scholars say, and these are like selective. You get some like scattered, scholars who say it's like a good thing here or there, but just to make the point here. He made many mistakes in hadith. He was not good at memorization. Listen to what this one says here. Anyone whose name was Awesome had a bad memory. Because his memory was so bad They're like, anyone who's named that
Don't take anything
don't
from.
take anything from.
Yeah, that's kind of like I mean, that's saying you're so bad you've ruined a name completely. I mean, that's like the name
Exactly.
that's like the name Judas. You wouldn't see us naming kids Judas anymore because that name has just been ruined, even though it was one of the most common names back then. Or like the name Adolf or something. We're not going to be naming kids Adolf nowadays. It's like he's like ruined a name. What they're saying there is this guy is his memory is so bad. Anyone who even has the same name, we can't help but think of that guy as having a bad memory. That's how messed up this guy is. But wait a minute. This is another guy in the chain of transmission of the Quran that 95% of the world's Muslims use.
Yep.
So it's a liar taking stuff from a guy who couldn't remember.
Yeah, they say like he became senile before he died, and they said like what was wrong with him? Well, nothing was wrong with him except his memory. Well, it's kind of a big deal, right? It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, if you're transmitting information.
Yeah.
That was his only job.
Yeah, you had one job.
You had one job.
And again, Ibn Hajar, again, this is the source as well for this. So that's awesome. That's who Hafs got. That's the next one in the chain. And then you might think that that's it. That's it. That's all. Well, no, actually, no. Who did Asim allegedly get his from? Abu Abdurrahman as-Salami. So what do they say about him? What do the scholars say about him? Well, here's the first problem with him. When you look at the chain, it says that it goes from Hafs to Asim to Abu Abdurrahman to Uthman to Ali to Zayd and to Ubay. But this hadith here, it says actually Shu'bah said that Abu Abdurrahman did not hear it, meaning the Quran, from Uthman or from Abdullah, but he heard it from Ali. So this chain actually says that so you have a hadith here that says that he didn't learn the Quran from Uthman, but the chain says he did. So the chain says Abu Abdurrahman learned the Quran from Uthman. However, this hadith here, which they're saying is authentic, and he says, actually, no, he didn't actually learn it from Uthman. So there's a problem.
We don't even know where he's getting this stuff from, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so then there's another really interesting comment here when you go to At-Tabari. At-Tabari, on his commentary on chapter 18, verse 28, he says that the reading of Abu Abdurrahman was hated by the scholars of the Arabic language.
This dude was hated by Arabic scholars.
Yeah, like the way that he worded things in the Arabic, it would hurt their ears. They'd be like, "Oh no, dude, we hate this guy. We hate this guy. We don't want anything to do with him." So there you go. Now you cross him out, cross Uthman out, and this is what you get at the end. Hafs, he's a liar, a thief, a fabricator, unreliable. He's a distorter. Asim, he's a bad memory and he's unreliable. And then Abu Abdurrahman, his Quran was hated by the scholars of Arabic language, and he also didn't learn it from Uthman, even though the chain says that he did.
Just based on, to clarify, again, for anyone who's coming in late, this is the transmission of the Quran that was basically imposed on Muslims. This process wasn't, hey, let's go with the best manuscripts and come out with a Quran that is, has the best chain of transmission, or that we have the best manuscripts for. It's just what's imposed by the Ottoman Empire, which was in charge. And the chain of transmission for that Quran. So again, we've got different Qurans in different parts of the world, different Quran with contradictory meanings in those Qurans. So the question is, who gives the correct reading? 95% Muslims have had foisted upon them a Quran that's transmitted by Hafs, who's considered by Muslim scholars a liar, a thief, and a fabricator, a distorter, someone who's generally unreliable. He got it from Asim, who's known for his bad memory. The one job he had was to remember stuff, and they said he has he's bad at that. He's bad at the one thing. At the one job he has, he's bad at it. And so he's unreliable. And then, of course, that came from Abi Abdul Rahman, and the Arabic guys, the experts, the kings of Arabic during his time hated it. They thought that his Arabic was garbage, and contrary to the chain of transmission, he didn't learn it from Uthman. And this is the state of the Quran that 95% of Muslims in the world think is as good as gold.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there's something that I like to just kind of like by way of analogy. There's this principle of interpretation that is like, from like the lesser to the greater. Like you see this in like the Talmud, for example. It's also used in the Bible as well. And it's basically like if the rule applies here in this one instance, then it surely applies here in another instance. So just going to read a couple of verses in the Bible where it says in Jeremiah 12, for example, it says, if you have run with footmen and they have wearied you, then how can you contend with horses? So it's like, okay, if you can't contend with the footmen, how in the world are you going to contend with the guys that are on the horses? And Jesus says in Matthew 12, what man is there among you who has a sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not lay hold of it and let it out? Of how much more value then is a man than a sheep? Therefore, it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. So look, if you're going to do it to a sheep, then how much more would you do it to a man? And then Proverbs 11, the word of God here says that if the righteous will be recompensed or rewarded on the earth, how much more the ungodly, the sinner? So this principle here, it's like what I'm trying to get at here by kind of like way of analogy is that this, if it applies in this way, how much more does it apply over here? So if you don't trust these guys when it comes to Hadith, you don't trust them when it comes to something lesser than the Quran, then how in the world are you going to trust them with the Quran? You don't trust them, like David, like you said, like you don't trust them with the sayings of Muhammad. Why then would you trust them with the sayings of Allah? And it's not just like because a lot of times Muslims when they'll say like, oh, someone can be good in math but they're bad in history, like like they're just different areas of but no, it's like the guy who is, let's say, a specialist in history and let's say he's bad in math. Well, let's say that the guy in history, he's known for being a liar and a fabricator. And it's like you're not just saying that he's not good at Hadith. You're saying that his memory is bad. You're saying that these guys are liars, fabricators, etc. So again, why would you trust them in this lesser thing, Hadith, and then why wouldn't you trust them there, but you trust them in something much, much greater, that your salvation is like dependent on the word of Allah? Why would you trust them in that?
Yeah, so if you wanted to stick with a math example, if you're a teacher and this student is known for cheating in arithmetic and for copying answers and for smuggling in a calculator and so on, and just cheating regularly, and then you say, but we're going to trust this. We're just going to mindlessly trust this student when he's doing algebra. Like, yeah, wait, what? Exactly. Why would we do that? He's guy's got massive character problems. He's got character flaws that make him unreliable in arithmetic. He's a cheater and a liar. I wouldn't trust him in other things, let alone with what for Islam should be the most important thing of all, preserving the Quran. It's like, I mean, if you're going to have this methodology for Hadith studies, that getting the words of Muhammad right is so insanely important that we're not going to accept it from anyone who is not completely reliable. But then you turn around and say, but we'll take the Quran, the speech of Allah, from any lying idiot fabricator who's known for having a bad memory and is otherwise completely untrustworthy. We'll take that from them. It's like they're saying it's more important to have reliable stories about Muhammad than the reliable speech of Allah, which kind of, in a weird way, fits what you actually see in Islam, that Muhammad is just massively more important than Allah for them.
Yeah, who's the real God here?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. 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 Wow, so that's pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Yeah, so that is that's our presentation on Hafs. Now we're planning on expanding this and going to like other Qurans as well, and what do they say about these other transmitters of the Quran? What do they say about these other readers of the Qurans, the multiple Qurans that exist in the world today? And it's bad for them as well. But let's start with this one, the most popular Quran today. This guy is literally unreliable in every sense of the word. He's a fabricator, which Muhammad said, look, if you lie about me, if you say something, if you claim that I said something that I didn't say, then you have your place in hell. So he's called by, even Farid said that these are big Hadith scholars who are calling him a liar. Like, these guys call him a liar. They call him a fabricator. So he's fabricating what? He's fabricating hadith. He's fabricating sayings of Muhammad, traditions and things like that. So yeah, this guy, according to that hadith, he'd have his place in the hellfire. According to Muhammad, so yeah.
This is pretty wild stuff. I'd heard of some of this. I'd heard of some of this stuff before, but putting it all up there on the screen, that is, Muslims got a problem. And guess what? How many Muslims that you'll run into? In other words, if the people who are watching here learn some of this information, they take some screenshots, or they just sit down and watch this presentation with their Muslim friends, how many of their Muslim friends are going to be familiar with even 1/10 of the information about the transmission of the Quran that they believe in here?
Yeah, it's going to be like literally probably like 1 out of 100 like that are going to have somewhat familiarity with this topic, like just somewhat. Like I said, when we did the presentation on God Logic stream, we had a bunch of people come up, and some of them spoke Arabic as well, and they like, yeah, we don't really know the topic, but they at least confirmed. We showed them with the Arabic what it says. They're like, yeah, that's okay, you guys are right, that's what it says. And so the ones who actually came up to deal with the what we were going over, they didn't actually. The familiarity, what I'm trying to say is the familiarity from the Muslims is just very, very, very low on this topic. So if you study this topic out, you use this material, for the glory of God, we pray that this will be used to open the eyes of Muslims. And, you'd be shocked to see how many Muslims, the Quran that they say they're so proud of, they say, oh, we memorized this when we were little kids and this and that. Once they learn these little details about it, these facts about it, you'd be surprised to see some of the reactions.
Yeah, guys. So the idea here is I would watch this. If this is something you want to use. And guys, this is earlier I was saying we just have to be relentless. The Dawah guys and the Islamic scholars are just frequently just compulsive liars who will say anything. They understand there's an avalanche of apostasy. So when someone comes up with doubts, hey, I heard there are differences in the Quran. You guys told us that. They'll just say anything. They'll just say anything to calm this person down and keep him in Islam, which means they're not going to hear this. The Muslims are not going to hear this from their Dawah guys. They're not going to hear, oh, the Quran we all use, it's actually it's transmitted by a known fabricator who got it from a guy with a bad memory, who got it from who knows what, who was considered terrible at Arabic. They're not going to tell you any of that. They're not going to say any of that. And so the only place they're going to hear it from is you. So this would be, if you're not familiar, if you don't know what you're going to do, because there are lots of things to do. There are lots of things to do. You could learn certain hadiths and share them with embarrassing material. You could learn to respond to Muslim arguments against Christianity. You could learn what the Quran says about the Bible and share that information. There are all sorts of areas. Where you could be effective. This would be one of them, and this would be kind of cutting edge because they just got past the idea of perfect preservation. Now they're wrestling with what's going to be our new story. And so at first the Dawah guys tried to convince them, oh, it's just different dialects. That's why we have all these different Qurans. And no, we're not going to let them get away with that. And so we have people like Jai and DOC showing the differences between the different Qurans that actually give you contradictory meanings. But for Muslims who think, well, but I still got this one Quran and that thing's as good as gold. If you show them some of this, and keep in mind, you could just take a screenshot of some of the assessments of Hafs as a transmitter. And you could just ask your Muslim friend, hey, the Quran you use is the Hafs version. Here's what Hadith transmitters thought about Hafs' reliability. They called him a liar. Called him a liar and a fabricator and a thief. So why do you trust this guy's Quran? Ask them that. Guess what? They've never heard it before. They've never heard that before. And so they're going to have to start looking that up. Then they're going to go to their Dawah guy. Who's going to lie to them? But then, they're going to come back with the lie they got from the Dawah guy. And you might have to give them a little more information. But this is just what we have to do. It's just what we have to do. So yeah, good stuff. This is the cutting edge stuff. Because again, they're coming out of one lie and they're trying to figure out what the next lie is going to be. And then we're wrestling with them so that the new lie does not become ingrained in Muslims. We're trying to disrupt the new lie as they're trying to formulate it. So these are cool times, cool times, cool times. All right. Well, thanks, Giant DOC. Someone did point out. What's that?
Yeah. I just want to say, by the way, there's also a Shia scholar who, I think like 1970s or something like that. He actually, and by the way, not like this is not original with him, but he actually wrote like there's like I don't know if it's a book or if it's like an article or journal or something like that, where he basically did this whole thing like as a Shia Muslim. Like he actually said, hey, if you guys go to these like the Sunni books and you examine what do they say about these people. Well, you're going to get basically all the information here that we presented. Like they say that about basically all the Qurans that the Muslims have. So you have like Shia Muslims doing the same exact thing, and so it's not just like so even within Islam, like you have Muslims, and even Quran only Muslims. By the way, Quran only Muslims they happen to just like Hafs, like, but they don't realize that the same reason why they reject the Hadith, like they rely on change. Their Quran Hafs also relies on change. So like it's problematic for any type of Muslim, whether they're Shia, Sunni, or Quran only. But Daughter of Christ, do you want to just?
Yeah, I saw some Arab in the chat.
Oh yeah, you have like a big discussion going on in Arabic. I don't know if you noticed.
So this Arab in the chat, this poor deluded person, we pray for her. She says the Quran is the basis of the Arabic language.
Which is a joke.
Which is a joke because the Arabic language came before the Quran. Yeah. But we actually have sources from the Sahaba themselves saying that the Quran has mistakes in it.
Yeah.
Quote Al-Tabari from Surah 20 verse 63. Surah 20 verse 63. The Quran says, Inna hadani lasahiran. Those two magicians. And it says it grammatically incorrect. And Qurtubi says, people said that this reading is grammatically incorrect in the Mus'haf.
Yes.
Grammatically incorrect in the Mus'haf. And it should be, Inna hadayni lasahirayn, which is a change in the vowel letter.
Mm-hmm.
And that reading is grammatically correct, different to the Mus'haf. And we have also Uthman saying, also in the Qurtubi, tafsir of this verse, saying, in the Mus'haf there is grammatical error and the Arabs will correct it with their tongues. في المصحف لحن ستقيمه العرب بألسنتهم. لحن, the word لحن in Arabic means grammatical inaccuracies.
Yeah, grammatical mistakes. Yeah.
And we've got that for Surah 20 verse 63, and we also have it for another Surah 5 verse 69. If you go to Qurtubi Tafsir, if this lady reads any Arabic, if you go there, you'll see Aisha said, every time I hear this, it hurts my ears. Every time I hear this, I can't bear it because it's a mistake from the katib. It's a mistake from the scribe. And guess what? This mistake is still here today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, we can do another presentation on this as well, where we show even Aisha herself saying that there are grammatical mistakes in the Quran as it exists today. So this idea that Muslims say like the Quran's perfect Arabic, you don't need to trust our understanding of Arabic grammar, our understanding of Arabic language. We can go to Muslim scholars, even Aisha, who say that no, there are grammatical mistakes.
Aisha and Uthman, as early as them, and
saying that they're grammatical mistakes.
Grammatical mistakes in the Quran.
Yep.
And the Qurtubi affirming those grammatical mistakes. It's all in their sources.
Yes.
By the way, the surah that I said, Surah 5, verse 69.
Yep.
It says the Sabi'un, right?
Yep.
The Sabians. It should be Sabi'in. It should be in the accusative form, okay? But the Quran gets it wrong. Quran gets it wrong in that verse. Interestingly, the Quran gets the exact phrase right in another verse. So if they say, no, it should be that way, then you can bring the other verse where it says it correctly and say, which one is it?
Yeah.
We might put out that presentation on our channel. But no, the Quran was not there before the Arabic language. The Quran did not make the Arabic language.
Exactly.
People recognized, Arabs, Sahabas, companions, that there were errors in it grammatically.
Yes.
So what you were responding to Lana? Is that the one you're responding to?
Yes.
Yeah, this lady doesn't know anything. And,
shocker. And yet is happy to correct everyone else. That is...
Yeah, we all those sources. Read Qurtubi for those verses that we just told you about.
Isn't that a sad situation where the less you know in Islam, the more you go around correcting everyone who's trying to tell you the truth?
Exactly.
Isn't that an amazing feature of the religion? It's like people could say, hey, here are 20 of your scholars. You go, no, it's perfect because that's what I heard from my Dawa guy. Wait, the same guys who told you perfect preservation right down to the letter until that was exposed by non-Muslims, those guys told you this stuff and you just mindlessly accept them. Lana, I understand you're raised all your life and you're trained and conditioned all your life to just go with whatever your sheikh or your imam or your Dawa guy says. The overall, there's a takeaway that's beyond the takeaway. There's a takeaway that's the takeaway from all these different takeaways. So the general takeaway from like this presentation is that, the Quran that 95% of Muslims use has problems in it, even according to their own methodology and their own scholars. Muslims aren't aware of it because their leaders never tell them this stuff. They keep it hidden from them because this would make Muslims doubt the Quran. So that's a takeaway this presentation. But the takeaway from all the presentations, the overarching takeaway is you get your information about your religion and your book and your prophet from guys who, as far as we can tell, are the biggest bunch of compulsive liars the world has ever seen. And they tell you one lie, and you only find out it's a lie when you hear it from non-Muslims. You'll hear non-Muslims explaining how it's a lie. So you'll hear non-Muslims saying, no, there's not actually one Quran. There's a bunch of different Qurans and so on. And so you go back to the exact same scholar or the exact same Dawa guy and say, hey, you said perfect preservation, right down to the letter, dot for dot, letter for letter. But they pointed out there's all these different Qurans. What's going on there? And they'll tell you a new lie. Oh, don't worry. It's just different dialects. It's not. Yeah. But they're lying to you again. So then you go back and you go, ha ha, you dumb kuffar. I asked the Dawa guy and he said it's all different dialects. And then someone like Jai and DOC, they actually take you through the verses and they show it's not dialects. It's giving completely contradictory meanings on some of these passages. And you go back to the same Dawa guy and they'll tell you something. Oh, yes, but these are different. And they all go back. All these different readings go back to Muhammad and they complement each other and they expand our knowledge. And the question is, at what point do you realize if this guy keeps lying to me, I should not be listening to him? Like how? If I caught you in one big lie, if you told me for years perfect preservation right down to the letter and that turned out to be a lie, I'm done with you, dude. You could do something to redeem yourself. You could repent and apologize and explain why you lied and how you've reformed your ways. And maybe you could win back my trust at some point. But if the next thing I hear about you is a new lie, how in the name of common sense would I take you seriously in matters of religion? I wouldn't. Exactly. And think it's the same situation where you trust liars and fabricators and thieves, and you go back and where does your Quran come from? Liars and fabricators and thieves, and you go all the way back and you're worshiping a God who brags about being the best of deceivers and a prophet who was a literal caravan robber. Do you see a pattern here? Your entire religion is built on deception, and you get mad at us for telling the truth. What is wrong with you? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. By the way, this lady just kind of defaulted back to,
oh, the Bible
you don't know who wrote the Torah. You don't know who wrote the Gospel.
That's a big L. When they run out of stuff to defend, they say, what about the Bible? What about the Bible?
Who wrote the New Testament?
Yeah,
wait a minute. Wait, you mean the Bible that your God and your prophet affirm is the inspired, preserved, authoritative word of God? You're attacking it, thus convincing us even more that your prophet and your God had no clue what they were talking about? Good job.
Exactly.
Bang up job. Your God and your prophet say our book is as good as gold. Your God and your prophet order us to judge by the book that we have. And you said, oh, but you don't know where it comes from. Okay, so it doesn't come from God? So the Quran is wrong. Thanks. It's garbage, even more than we thought. Exactly. All right. So anyway, that's a presentation. Always like your guys' presentation. I'm going to go through some super chats here. If you guys have something to do, you can cut out. There's a couple here that are actually commenting for you. So stay for these first couple, and then I'm going to continue. Okay. Yeah, this won't be long. There's looks like there's some more. Isn't Islam a fascist ideology? Crazy religion. 1 second. Let's get the official definition. Fascism. A far-right, authoritarian, definitely authoritarian, ultra-nationalist. I think you could You'd have to modify that a little bit, but yeah, Ummah. Political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, definitely Muhammad. Centralized autocracy, yeah. Militarism, that works. Forcible suppression of opposition, definitely sounds like that. Okay, yeah. So you could apply this. You could apply that term to Islam. Yep. Here you have love the husband and wife team. Jai DOC. Peace be with you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
God
we need
bless you.
more. We need more husband-wife duo teams. Shachmat jihadis would be awesome. So that's the German version of checkmate jihadis. Shachmat jihadis. Yeah. Okay.
Jihadis.
What does that mean?
Checkmate
his
jihadis.
checkmate.
Yeah,
Oh,
they wanted a German version. I hadn't thought about different languages, but that actually works because we just need to change the checkmate. We just need to change the checkmate for the shirts. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out. Link to Jai and DOC's channels broken, unfortunate. I think I fixed it. Yeah, sometimes you paste the long version and it cuts it off when it shortens links and so on. So I believe I fixed it. Go ahead and check and verify someone. But yeah, you guys want to be following. In fact, guys, if you are interested in apologetics and polemics and so on, and you're not sure exactly what you want to go into, the material that Jai and DOC are covering, very important cutting edge stuff that's cutting off the lie before they act. That would be an ideal situation if we expose their old lies, and as they're trying to formulate their new lies, we're just wrecking them before they even get started. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
It'd be an awesome situation. Sheikh Mike Wingjalinge D Wood equals liar. Just went outside to debate women and they didn't marry me. And I got kicked out and told I'll go to jail if they ever see me near that school again. You're right. I apologize. I should have clarified. Do not be doing this Muhammad style where you're going to people's kids. Sorry, but I noticed this parallel similar to Calvinists and Catholics appeal to mystery. God, Allah knows best. And this goes way back to Peter, first Pope, bruv. Not sure what you're on about there, bruv. But as far as the Allah knows best, yeah, there are things that are going to be a mystery, and there are things that we know and so on. As far as what Jai and DOC are pointing out, we know a lot about the transmission of the Quran, and it's got some serious problems, and Muslims don't know about it. And if we tell them this stuff, Muslims are going to see the problems. Beatrice here, no comment. Let's see. Ripple affect. No one in the Bible was baptized saying in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They only were baptized in Jesus' name. Okay, so we have some sort of Unitarian. What did Jesus command? Baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I don't know how you're going to throw out a command of Christ there. David, I just wanted to let you know that there's no way you're getting a donation over AP. What?
But you just did.
Yeah, you just did. What are you talking about? Ha ha!
They give you shekels too.
Been refuted. Oh, I love the shekels. I'm all about the shekels. My chain of narration was called weak because I tugged on my beard. Your chain of narration is weak. Ha ha! Checkmate, you little weaklings.
I don't know why tugging on the beard would be bad.
I didn't get that one either, but that's what they say. I don't know.
I'm wondering if that was like there are certain signs if you see little tics that people have when they lie. Like one of them is like touching your nose while you're talking, and you'll just randomly. If you ever watch Sheikh Yasser Qadhi, he does it the entire time. He said, and so as we are going through this, and it's like that's considered among psychologists, that's considered a sign of lying if you can't stop like compulsively touching your nose. But I'm wondering if they thought of that with beards or something like that it's like a sign that you're lying. Because you like get nervous with your hands or something like that. So maybe they think that these guys would pull on their beards if they're lying. I don't know. Or unless they just thought it was bad etiquette or something like that. And so you can't trust a guy with bad etiquette. Yeah, I wonder if anyone actually knows, or if it's just going to be kind of best guess situation.
Yeah.
Would any Dawa guy be reliable enough to narrate Hadith? How many are known liars? Well, all of the main ones. Yeah, all of the main Dawa guys are known liars. But I'd have to say, if they're going to be reliable enough to narrate Hadith, we'd have to say, if Smiles to Jannah is reliable enough to grape Ali Dawa in the mouth and be giving him grapes, why couldn't he be giving him hadiths reliably? He reliably transmitted grapes into Ali Dawa's mouth. Why wouldn't he also be able to transmit hadiths? So yes, I think Smiles to Jannah and Ali Dawa are a good team. Is there a Quran equivalent of King James Version only that only accepts one qiraat? So in other words, there are people who have the King James Version and they say that's the only authoritative version. I'm guessing there are lots of Muslims who are that way by default because they think they've got the only version. But are you guys familiar with this? Is there anyone who is aware of the different qiraat and then say, but this is the only one or something?
I've seen it from Quran only Muslims. Like they'll just like accept Hafs, not realizing that like they only accept it because he's popular today. But if they lived like 200 years ago or whatever, that would be a different one. But yeah, I've seen that amongst Quran only Muslims where they knowingly just accept Hafs, rejecting the other ones, and even saying the other ones are wrong and things like that.
And it's not exactly the same thing, but it's in the same ballpark. Even when you have someone saying, okay, there are all these dozens, but I'm picking 7. These are the 7. It's like he's saying these are the 7 only. So it's like the 7 qiraat only version. And then of course later on you have the 10. So yeah, it's not exactly the same thing, but they have some parallels there.
Yeah.
See. But you see, Dr. Wood, Hafs being a liar makes him more appropriate as a transmitter of the Quran. The father of lies was its writer, after all. That'd be a funny situation where, like, the less reliable you are, the bigger deceiver you are, the more they like you as a transmitter of stuff. There is no God like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Muhammad is his woof woof. What? Holy, comment from Holy. Just a smiley face there. Hafs' teacher Asim was blind. Asim's teacher was blind as well. The blind leading the blind. Hafs' Quran differed from Asim's Quran.
Yeah.
That sound accurate?
Yeah. Rob Christian is good on these topics as well. He's also presented on similar topics. I think he just did one recently. So when you look at, like, Awesome, you have, one of them goes to Hafs and then the other one goes to Sharaba. Well, Sharaba and Hafs, they differ in places. We actually showed an example of that in the other stream that we did with you. And yeah, so the question is, like, how many Qurans did this guy have if he's giving like different versions of, so yeah, it's good point.
Thank you. Amazing. Yes, this is good stuff. Is there a Quran version based on this is an interesting question. Is there a Quran version based on proper methodology like textual criticism? The Hadith too seems hard to do given how dumb the traditional method is. So yeah, it'd be kind of a different question for Hadith, but like a critical edition of the Quran would be basically taking all the manuscripts, lining them all up, having them dated and so on, finding quotations of the Quran and assessing how early they are, examining the different qiraat. But with the different qiraat, it would kind of be going through it like verse by verse and saying, okay, we have this one in these different qiraat, we have this version in these qiraat, which is most likely to be authentic and which is most likely to be a copyist mistake or inserting a dot at the wrong place or something like that. I think that's kind of what Yasser Qadi said in the infamous Holes in the Narrative interview when Hijab said, hey, if I gave you a blank mushaf, could you write what is the Quran on there? And he said, it's basically going to be a combination. I'm going to be going to different places and stuff. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly. Yasser Qadi, he did say that. So proper methodology like textual criticism. Well, the thing is, Muslims, they don't actually value manuscripts. And that's not just me saying that, like, oh, I'm just like attacking Muslims. Like, no, you actually have Muslim like academics like Haytham Sidki, for example, who say yeah, they just don't actually value, like, they don't value it in the tradition, because they value, these chains to what they have. Like, that's where they put the most emphasis on, the chains.
But that's
And so
funny
they
because the
think that
chain's a
that's the most-
disaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, some of them are fabricated chains.
Yeah, right. So it's like that's what they have. That's what they go on, and they don't actually value like manuscripts or what's the oldest manuscript or any sort of like methodologies that you would utilize for like the Bible or basically any book really.
Yeah, I don't know of any scholars of manuscript in the Muslim world.
Yeah,
There should be hundreds, right?
because they just don't really care.
They don't care
like,
about manuscripts.
Yeah.
Maybe there's one that I've heard of,
Yeah.
and I think he's almost not a Muslim or he's persecuted.
Yeah.
But they don't have a manuscript science like we do with the Bible.
Right.
Yeah, this is wild. So guys, what's being pointed out here is if you have lots of copies of a book, which is what you had in the ancient world. Before the printing press, if you wanted a book, you had to copy a book. If you're copying an entire book, you're going to make mistakes. You're copying an entire giant book, you're going to make mistakes. And there are mistakes that are very common and they're understood, like spelling differences, very, very common. In other words, there can be multiple ways in a language to spell a word. And the spelling of a word can change over time. So if you're copying a book from 2 centuries earlier and you're copying it, you might use the way that you spell the word now rather than the way it was spelled 2 centuries earlier. So, but textual critics have names for all of the most common different kinds of mistakes a copyist might make. Once you're aware of the different kinds of mistakes copyists make, and you're looking at all these manuscripts and you're saying, okay, this one's earlier than this one, and this one's that one, and we've got a bunch of this kind of manuscript and so on, you can start looking at them and saying, oh, this one is different from this one, but we know why that happened. We know why that happened.
Right.
And so that's how you do textual criticism. And if you wanted to get back to some sort of original reading of the Quran, that's the method you would be using. But Giant Dio's here pointing out that's not the Muslim methodology. They just rely on this transmission scheme.
Yeah.
But the transmission for their main version that they use is a disaster. It would fail. It would be laughed out of court if it were a hadith. If this were just a story, if you had that name of transmitters on a simple hadith about something Muhammad did. Hey, Muhammad went and peed. Here's the list of transmitters. Hey, we can't believe that. We can't believe that. It's unreliable. Look at those names. Those guys are a bunch of liars and fabricators with bad memories and stuff like that. But these are the guys who gave you the Quran. So they're using a methodology, which is it's an inferior methodology to textual criticism.
Yes.
But even using their defective inferior methodology, their book fails that methodology. So it's like a giant joke. This is crazy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Rustling. David, your West Virginia is showing. Did I say rustling at some point? If I wanted West Virginia, I'd say wrestling. Would it be offensive to celebrate Uthman Day by burning piles of Qurans? No. That is the only way to celebrate Uthman Day. Aisha and Uthman said the Quran has grammatic errors. So a very mature child and a wife stealer who are not medical doctors. Nice try, Kufr.
Yeah, you want to kick them on the bus as well.
Yeah.
You can if you want.
See, Lana logic is what Ali Dawa said. 1 versus 100. Oh yeah, Ali Dawa said 1 Muslim can take on 100 Christians and destroy them.
Oh
So,
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she's taking.
She's the one.
Great
Yeah, by
job,
saying-
Lana. And it's even more extreme because according to Muhammad, she has half the intellectual ability of a man. So she's in here schooling us.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so keep up. Yep, those women with their whiteboards are powerful. Husband and wife combos plus very Christian. See Acts. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Priscilla and Aquila.
Nice.
What? Lana has been on God Logic streams. She had no problem her prophet sleeping with a child. She said she would let her child do the same. This is 100% true. Is that true, Lana? Did you say you would let a 50? That is true. You've seen that before?
Yeah. She was on the stream. I think it was last stream or something. But yeah, she was there and she said, I don't have any. I would let my, let her child sleep with Muhammad. She didn't have any no issue.
Disgusting. That's demonization.
At the same time, she was arguing that Aisha wasn't she Aisha was like 18 or something like that. So we don't know Aisha's
contrary
age. So
to
then,
every source we have.
Exactly. And then
That's
so she got challenged on the point was like, okay, so what would you do if he asked your daughter, like let's say a 9-year-old daughter, 6-year-old daughter, like, oh, of course I would, because it's of course I'd give it to the Prophet.
So this is fascinating. We have over 200 sources saying that Aisha was 9. Lana says, can't trust those guys. Well, therefore you can't trust Hadith methodology in general. You think it's garbage because it's your most reliable sources that say this. You trust a Quran that's transmitted by liars and fabricators with terrible memories whose Arabic is garbage. And you'll accept all of this because you've been conditioned not to accept any particular methodology, but just because you've been conditioned all your life to mindlessly obey whatever your leaders say. And that's so much so that if they tell you, give your 9-year-old daughter to this creepy old Heaven's Gate looking pervert over here, you do it in a heartbeat. How do you hear what we just said and still just continue down this path? It's disgusting. And you're better than this. You're created in the image of God. So stop letting people degrade the image of God in you and your daughter.
Amen. Amen.
When a Muslim claims that Jesus or Moses were Muslims, he should be asked to tell when it is documented that they fasted in Ramadan. Or that they did anything else that we associated with Islam, because they always did things that would rule them out as Muslims, and so it's fun stuff. But it's the same issue. Muslims aren't saying that Jesus or Moses are Muslims because they've examined their lives and said, "Wow, these guys meet the requirements of being a Muslim." They're just saying Muhammad said it, and that's it. This entire religion is one person. It is a religion that is centered around one person and all of his ramblings.
Exactly.
And
like they always say, oh yeah, we believe in the prophets. No, you don't. You believe in one guy and what he said.
One guy
about all the prophets. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And it's just sad because that one guy that you believe in happens to be the least reliable person in history to tell you about God. You could find a random crackhead on the street and I would trust him more about God than I would trust Muhammad. It's how unreliable he is.
True.
And you're willing to you'd hand over your daughter to him. Do you support managed democracy? There's only one correct answer. Also, jokes aside, what's your issue with Mike Winger? I'm new around here. Not sure about managed democracy, but I am sure about Mike Winger. He's a nerd. That's all the information you need to know. What are you guys thinking about the origin of Allahu Akbar from the sun and moon god and the 3 daughters of Allah in Meccan paganism? Have you guys come across any of this?
I heard things about it, but I've never really gone into much detail on it.
Yes, I've never actually studied. I've seen Allahu Akbar, that there was the pagans were yelling one thing, like Hubal is great or something like that, and the Muslims yelled back Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater or something like that. But I don't remember. I don't remember where I saw that, so I wouldn't want to comment on it. And and you've got Alat, Alus, and Manat, who I've seen referred to as daughters of Allah and so on, but I wouldn't be familiar with the source that's... So we've got them listed as pagan goddesses. I wouldn't be familiar with what exactly is calling them daughters of Allah. But these are all future research projects. Imagine Mike Winger's going to Speaker's Corner. Oh my goodness, he would get eaten alive. He'd be totally humiliated. He'd go running back to the U.S. with his tail between his legs, crying, and he would console himself by watching Star Trek for 6 weeks straight. Isn't the original transmission from Ubay ibn Ka'b? If so, what happened to the verse about Muhammad being a father to Muslims? Is he talking about the Hafs version? Does that go back to Ubay ibn Ka'b? I get what he's saying here.
No, he's not. He's in the chain, but this variant that he's talking about, actually, you've done videos on this. This variant where it says Muhammad is a father to them. So Ubay supposed to. So that's an interesting question, because you do have this reading attributed to Ubay, and then you also have he's in the chain. So where is this, where is this reading? So I think that's, maybe it just makes it for a bigger problem. Yeah, he's in the chain here. So
Yeah, so guys, the issue is Ubay had some textual variance in his Quran, and there's a part, Surah 33, verse 6, where Muhammad's wives are called the mothers of the believers. But in Ubay's version, it said that that Muhammad is a father to them. And so that was eventually taken out of the Quran. But that was in Ubay. So the question is, if this goes back to Ubay, then why isn't it in there? And
that's a good question.
there would be a couple possibilities here. So it could be that later transmitters consolidated the Quran to bring it in line, with other versions of the Quran. Because I mean, even who was it? Umar in Sahih al-Bukhari said, Ubay's the best of the reciters, but we leave out some of what he recites. So they understood we're actively leaving out some of his recitation because we believe that some of it has changed or been abrogated or something like that. So it could be later guys who are sort of going through and editing and saying, okay, this part of Ubay needs to be chopped off. Or it could have been a situation where Ubay himself eventually got in line, was required to get in line and say, hey, you need to make sure your version of the Quran lines up with the rest of these now.
Yeah, because there's a verse in the Quran just a little bit later in the same surah, Surah 33, verse 40, where it says Muhammad is not
father
the
to
father of any of your men.
Yeah.
So you can't say in verse 6,
like Allah,
he's your father, and then later. Yeah, so they must have seen it.
Yeah.
And taken it out.
I think there's also, I think Shali Nasser, at least he alludes to this as well, where he says like it's possible that they just kind of like made up these chains. Like I know that Marian Van Putten, for example, like just like non-Muslim academics in this field or whatever, they say these chains are just made up. Like they don't have but of course a Muslim wouldn't say that, but like I think that they can actually build a case that these chains are just like ad hoc. And these chains actually don't, they're not historical at all. But so we're just kind of granting that they are, and we're using that, and we're like, okay, well, this guy's a liar, thief, fabricator, bad memory, hated by, so.
Yeah, and that's standard among non-Muslim scholars of hadiths. There aren't a lot of non-Muslim scholars of hadiths, but they think these guys were fabricating hadith isnad chains like it was a sport in order to justify whatever position they were trying to defend. And so that's going on a lot back in the day with Islam. So like, how in the name of common sense do you trust all this stuff?
Exactly.
Let's see. A couple more here. I think we got 3 more. Isn't a lot of the original Quran obscure and lacking diacritics? Is the Syro-Aramaic reading of the Quran a valid book? Don't know if you guys have ever looked into this, but as far as the Quran without the diacritical marks being obscure, what are your thoughts on that? Like, because how would, like, if you, I'm sure you've tried at some point looking at it without the diacritic marks. How's that look?
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
You literally can't read the Quran unless you have like a system in mind for how to decipher. Like, you need to put the vowels there. So if you can like make out what the text is saying, then you're mostly going to read it according to like the Quran you're familiar with. So you're going to try to read it in conformity with that. But that's, just the text on its own. There's no like telling what possible vowels could have been here or there. Like,
you can't tell. In fact, for example, one verse says in Surah Al-Baqarah, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ.
Oh yes.
This book in it has no doubt. There is no doubt. If you change the dots, you can change it to ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا زَيْتَ فِيهِ.
Yeah.
In this book, there is no oil. Instead of doubt, there is oil. Just by changing the dots. In fact, there was someone
trying to find
who said that they called him Az-Zayyat, the oil man, because
Hamza.
he'd recite.
Right, I got the story here.
Yeah.
So Hamza, he used instead of saying raib, instead of saying raib, because if you look at it in Arabic, you literally just put it like
You just change the dots around from the top to the bottom.
Yeah. So
let me clarify. Let me clarify for everyone. So the original Quran lacked all these markings that clarified exactly which letters and so on. They were missing some things that clarify exactly what's being said. And so later on, people are adding the dots to clarify it, but they do it in different ways. And that's how you end up with different versions of the Quran and so on, because they're saying different things based on where these dots and so on are going.
Right.
And so you're pointing out that, and so what,
this
what,
guy
they're,
ended
what
up
they're pointing out
becoming
is
a
a lot of Quran verses. If you just have this sort of skeletal structure without the clarifications, then you could read it in completely different ways with completely different meanings. And so go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the readers of the Quran, Hamza, like Daughter of Christ just said, is that in chapter 2, verse 2 in the Quran, it says like, in that book, therein
There is
there's
no
no
oil.
yeah. So the normal Quran you read today says there's no doubt, but because he read it in a different way, instead of saying raib, he said zait. And so zait means oil. So he says, wherein there is no oil. And so he supposedly gets corrected for this. And he's like, oh, this is why you need like a teacher of
Yeah, because if you just yourself and the text, you can put any dots and make anything.
Yeah.
In fact, I changed some more dots. Instead of ذلك الكتاب, this book, I can change it to ذلك الكباب, this kebab.
Yeah.
In which case, I can change it to this kebab has no oil.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Which this book has no doubt, just by changing the dots.
Yeah, you can literally do that by just like the consonant text is the same, and you just kind of manipulate the dots, and you can do that.
Yeah, that would have made more sense than this book has no oil.
Yeah, so this is a Muslim scholar kind of narrating that story there about Hamza on the screen here. So
that would by the way, that would be a good short little video to illustrate the problem. So you put the consonantal like skeletal structure there and say this is how the Quran would have looked when it was originally being written down. Later on, you have to add dots, but how do you know where to add them? Well, if you do this, then you get this reading of the Quran. If you do this, and then you get and there's no oil. If you do this kebab has no oil, and so on, to kind of illustrate the problem. Because once someone absorbs that, which would only take like minute and a half, 2 minutes to break down to them, then they all of a sudden it clicks. This is why you have all these different readings of the Quran. They're because of this.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yes, that'd be a good short video there.
Arabic was the worst language Allah could have ever chosen. He chose it in a time of history where there was no dots. You could change it around like we just showed you.
Yeah.
He gave it to an illiterate man. There were a bunch of illiterate Bedouins. Only had a couple of people who could read and write. They had bad memories. They were all liars and thieves and had bad characters. And now you get this at the end.
Yeah.
God bless you, Power Trio, D Wood, Jai, and DOC. Love you all. Prophet Dawood, I personally believe that you and we would only benefit from Jai and DOC. Yes. Yes. We're going to be doing some great work.
Oh, that's Brother Al-Masihi. Okay, yeah. God bless.
Someone told me Muhammad had a Roman Catholic wife, and that's why he talks about Mary so much. Is there any truth to this? Not sure who you're referring to. So, there's Khadijah and her cousin Waraka, so they know something about the gospel. I would assume you're talking about Mary the Copt. She was Coptic. So she's Coptic.
Well, she's called Mary the Copt, but we don't have any evidence of what she believed in.
She was just like a slave that was...
Yeah, besides her escapades in the bedroom with Muhammad and bearing one of his children who died later. We don't know much about her.
But anyway, but possible that she's Coptic and knows something that she was raised to believe, and possible that he heard it there, but also possible that he's hearing this stuff from all kinds of places because he's talking to various people.
Yeah, the Quran, he is called the ear. So he just...
The ear. He's the ear.
The ear.
Quite a description. Muhammad, Mo the ear. His gangster name would be Mo the ear. He hears everything and believes what he hears. Everyone deserves love. Even Mike Winger just said that he can only get it here on the best site on the web. What a nerd. Yep, so here you have one of AP's fans coming over with all their perverted thoughts. Mike Winger's the type of guy to write a book on VeggieTales lore. That does sound like him. He probably does entire shows on it. I wouldn't know. I don't go to his channel. And thank you all for your hard work. Yeah, thank you. And thank you guys for watching. All right, we are all done. As far as I know, I'm going to be on with AP here in a little while for some awesome stuff. Guys, again, learn this information. Learn this information. You don't have to learn all of it. It's good if you learn all of it, but if you get the gist so that when it comes up in a conversation with Muslims, that's helpful. Taking a screenshot, again, just of some of the things about Hafs and how this guy's considered how he's considered reliable. You can bring that up almost any time a Muslim friend is quoting the Quran. If you're on Twitter and someone's bringing up the Quran, you can bring that sort of thing up. Hey, is this the Hafs? Are you using the Hafs version? Because I saw that this guy's considered unreliable. How do you explain that? Guess what? That person's never heard it before. It's going to be new information to that person. All right. Any final thoughts, Jai and DOC?
Yeah, we're just really happy to do these presentations with you, and God willing, we're looking forward to whatever God has in store for us in the future. So yeah, thanks for having us on. God bless you, and God bless everyone else who's watching and listening.
All right,
Amen.
and
Thank you
we'll
so much.
catch you all next time, which for me will be in about 50 minutes on AP's channel. Oh, wait, it's AP. Let's call it 60 minutes because we know it's going to be 10 or 15 minutes late. But catch you all soon.